Finding purpose. Finding a purpose or asking God what our purpose is and working through the booby traps and distractions of this life to really land within that purpose's confines is a life and death proposition. Finding a purpose is an invitation into the spiritual realm and an emergency exit out of a life trapped on the gerbil wheel of the flesh. So much of what we think about or people focus on regarding videos or books on success are chiefly concerned with the results of success, like viewers, money, financial freedom, influence, as well as adding value and service, of course, because those other things won't come without adding value as a rule. But underneath all of that, and even on top of all of that, is the real jewel of it all, and that is finding purpose. To build the home of our existence on, it's a strong foundation. The foundation of a life rooted in spirit is purpose, which is in alignment with our Creator, which elevates us or graduates us to the place where we can then feel compelled or even possessed to work on our purpose night and day with little concern about the results. I mean, we obviously are still concerned with results, but external results cease to be the main engine behind our motivation. We are, in fact, tapping into the main source, in effect, co-opting the same engine that created all things, and then we become a mere conduit or witness of creation moving through us, and then we become a kind of conductor of energies beyond ourselves. For we are motivated by an engine that revs beyond the material plane. Until we find a purpose, we spin our wheels. A project that is rooted strictly from our own will and volition is quite a different equation than one tapped into source energy. Yes, we are looking for massive action and discipline and all the usual tropes of the self-help movements to spur us along, but without aligning ourselves to the will of God and thus becoming a co-creator, conductor, or collaborator with God, or if we are depending on, or if all we are depending on rather, is the force of our own will, ultimately we will not get very far. We fall into bad habits and distractions. We dive further into the flesh and the traps of the demonic realms we wish to be liberated from. However, it should be said, spinning our wheels and seeking a purpose before we really find what it actually is isn't always a bad thing either. For in that, at least we are seeking, at least we are kind of calling out of the darkness and asking to be shown some kind of light. The key distinction, though, in the seeking is what the seeking is really revolving around. If we are seeking from strictly our own will and our own mind and stubbornly forcing a kind of purpose which might not exactly align with the will of God, or if in our seeking we don't just seek massive action and discipline, but also a way to tap into the engine of God's creation so that whatever we are working towards has a power that comes from a place beyond our own. If in our seeking we remember to ask for help, to ask to be shown, to turn over our will and be led by the Spirit in helping us find what we were put here to do. If in earnest we can say, I just want to do what you would have me do to serve humanity and you as best I can. If when we are seeking, we use that calling as our primary tool in the search, I believe we are led to our purpose, where suddenly motivation becomes easy to access, where not everything is a struggle, where we find hints about escaping the motivations of our flesh and the things that lead us away from the enormous gifts of living a life of purpose. Without purpose, life becomes survival between resting zones of oblivion and distraction, versus with purpose, every day becomes a co-creation with God and a surprising creative unfolding that is the true gift and true success of it. Money, fame, influence, and all that becomes very much secondary in that equation. This, mind you, is no small equation, finding a purpose, I mean. It's actually ultimately life and death. For without purpose, we may remain physically alive, but our true spirits will die to us. And I truly believe each of us has been given a purpose from the Most High. We aren't here simply to grind through the days, juggling distractions for the sake of survival. One of life's biggest challenges is finding that purpose through the maze of life, which continues to become more and more complicated. So many get lost in all the toxic booby traps. They tell themselves it's too late, not realizing that through the lifetimes of escape, they've invited in so many demonic strongholds that the voices of limitation they imagine are their own are not their own at all, really, but the voices they've picked up in bar rooms of stations of pornography or from toxic friends and partners which have through the years congealed on some chaotic neurological pathways and have assimilated themselves to their own voice, whispering negative messages day in and day out as they spin their wheels, wondering why they feel stuck. It's too late, they say. You've sunk too far. But the truth is, for most, it's really not too late, even if you're an older dude. But in order to change a fate of destruction that many have identified with, they have to submit themselves to God and ask for help with everything they have. We aren't strong enough to fight these types of demons on our own. To fight the spiritual, we must enlist an opposing force that resides on a similar plane. We need to submit to the power of God to break us free. It's very simple, actually, but it's the opposite of easy. Submerged in a world or this society that has demonized faith, in fact. And our society has done that for a good reason. It's hardly promoting avenues that can and will empower humanity to the point where they make humanity impossible to control. So many of our issues here aren't as psychologically based as society promotes either. Strapping people to endless shrink visits and medications, trying to conquer the problem of the mind using the logic of the mind, which becomes a kind of loop that never finds a conclusion. The subconscious damage to all of us through the limitations of our parents' abilities to adequately master the choppy seas of a child's development means we could all be on the shrink's couch for eternity and then some, and never really get to the bottom of it. Keeping our focus on the problems and limitations at some point only promotes those limitations and problems to the center stage of all of our lives. At some point, we must switch focus over to solutions that reach beyond the limits of humanity's capabilities, or else be damned to discuss our issues for 50 years or more, promising ourselves to really begin our lives once we've tinkered with and changed every single psychological stumbling block that really exists in us all. When all along, the real root of our problems are spiritual. And so call for a spiritual solution, inviting God in, inviting the Holy Spirit in, asking for help, rebuking demonic strongholds, actually repenting, working on forgiveness for ourselves and everyone in our life. Just as so much of our physical issues can be healed with what's free and simple, diet and exercise, fasting and proper sleep. So much of what haunts us mentally is as simple as that as well. Again, none of this is easy, but all of it is simple. And none of it requires being strapped to endless medical bills and drugs. Of course, there are exceptions on the extreme ends of these spectrums. I'm generalizing, I realize, so go easy in the comment sections. But I'm making a point that faith is our way to purpose, and the knowledge that finding purpose isn't for the special ones, but for everyone. And there are obvious forces attempting to shield that from us, destructive forces, satanic forces. We can't beat those forces on our own. The good news is we don't have to. Our states of mind really is where the whole game is played. It is, in fact, the primary battleground for the spiritual war all of us are knowingly or unknowingly in. And what we focus on day in and day out really is of the utmost significance. If we switch our focus from dramas, distractions, and issues demanding human solutions over to aligning ourselves with the will of God and seeking His purpose for us, I believe we give ourselves a significant chance of finding the kind of exciting life we all want here, swept up in a creative energy that comes from a place beyond our own power, but that also aligns with our own power and values. So that to become the kind of person driven enough to create the kind of dream life of self-empowerment and creative excitement, a badass boss, so to speak, becomes a kind of inevitability. So many roads lead to the opposite direction of that, from the obviously destructive to the falsely righteous. A good way to distinguish them is by noticing how complicated they are. For the pathway to purpose isn't complicated at all. It does require submission and an honest yearning for help and a kind of singular focus mixed with dedication on that focus until the path glows with an unmistakable hue as all other paths in this complicated structure of the maze then darken. And then from your soul a clear knowing will emerge saying, this is the way to go. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe, and let me know how you find your purpose and if you agree that it is of the utmost importance.